Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Okay, so now the formula. So let's see 3-4 examples, mix the theory and examples. So let's look at the first integral. So let's integrate e raised to z dz upon z plus 1 upon z minus 3 square along the contour mod z equal to 2. I will not specify the orientation, but the default orientation is always the anti-clockwise orientation. So let's integrate this function along the contour mod z equal to 2 anti-clockwise. So let me write this. So this integral as fz upon z plus 1, where fz is e raised to z upon z minus 3 square. So I write it like this. So you will see why. So by Cauchy integral formula, therefore the answer is 2 pi I times f at minus 1. So notice that the reason for writing it like this is that fz is now holomorphic inside mod z equal to 2. Fz is equal to e raised to z upon z minus 3 cube. Yeah, the only problematic point for fz is z equal to 3. But z equal to 3 is outside the circle mod z equal to 2. So this function is holomorphic on and inside this contour mod z equal to 2. So I have a holomorphic function fz. I'm dividing that by z plus 1 and integrating it along the contour. By Cauchy integral formula, it is 2 pi I times the value of the function at minus 1, because write this as fz upon z minus 1. So it's f of minus 1. So you just compute that this is pi I by 8e. It's important that I broke it up as fz upon z minus 1 and not in some other way. I want to break it up as something holomorphic upon z minus z naught upon z minus z naught. Okay, so this was example 1. So let's look at dz upon z cube minus 1. Now let's take the contour to be mod z equal to 6. 6 is not important, I could have taken 2 and I would have got the same answer, but let's take something, say 6. So naturally we would like to factorize z cube minus 1. How do you factorize it? Let omega be a complex cube root of unity. So 1 omega square are the 3 cube roots of 1. Minus 1 now gets factorized as z minus 1 times z minus omega times z minus omega square. Now the given integral can be broken up as sum of 3 integrals along 3 circles C1, C2, C3 around 1 omega square respectively. So we are going to play the same trick that we played a few minutes back. Break up. So I look at this picture. The curve gamma, outside circle gamma. I mean, my drawing is bad, but just pretend that this gamma is the circle mod z equal to 6. So I want to integrate that. But for the same reason as before, integrating along gamma is the same as sum of integrals along C1, C2, C3. C1 is the circle around 1, C2 is the circle around omega, C3 is the circle around omega square. So, yeah, I hope you can see 1 omega square. Omega is at 120 degrees, omega square is at 240 degrees, and radius 1. So I have drawn 3 circles, one around 1, second around omega, third around omega square, C1, C2, C3, and by modifying the contour that we saw previously, I can modify that contour and show that integration along gamma is the integration along C1 plus the integral along C2 plus the integral along C3. So how do I break that up? So let's look at gamma. So just try to follow the path that I am saying. Take gamma first, then go along 1. 1 is the horizontal path going left. So gamma followed by 1, followed by 2, followed by, so my letters are a bit small, unfortunately, I should have drawn a better picture. Followed by 3. Can you see the 3, 4, etc.? Is it legible? So, okay, let me describe it. You go along 1, then you go anti-clockwise along C1, then take the horizontal path going towards C2, then go a little bit down, that is path 4, then come down to C3, go around C3, then come back to C2, then come back to C1, and then back. Maybe I draw a better picture and send it again. But it's exactly the same principle as before. So gamma gets broken up into sum of integrals, and this path that I just described, this encloses the shaded region once again. The shaded region is simply connected. So this total integral is 0. So integration along gamma is integration along C1 plus integration along C2 plus integration along C3. Is it clear?
Yes, it is clear.
So then you're integrating along C1. So once again I will break up the function conveniently. So first time when you are integrating along C1, C1 is the circle around 1. So first time when I am integrating along C1, I will break it up as dz upon z minus w times z minus w square upon z minus 1. So something holomorphic upon z minus 1 plus something holomorphic upon z minus w when I am integrating along C2 plus something holomorphic upon z minus omega square when I am integrating along C3. So for example, when I am integrating along C1, yeah, look at the function 1 upon z minus w into z minus w square. That function is holomorphic in the small neighborhood of 1. Similarly, when I am integrating along C2, 1 upon z minus 1 into 1 minus z 1 upon z minus 1 into 1 into z minus omega square, that is holomorphic in the small neighborhood of omega, and 1 upon z minus omega into 1 upon z minus omega into z minus 1, that is holomorphic in the small neighborhood of omega square. So once I'm just suitably breaking up the integral into something holomorphic upon z minus z naught. That's the shape of the integrand in every case. And we know how to compute each of them. So this is 2 pi I times the value of the first function at z equal to 1. So 1 minus omega times 1 minus omega square plus 1 upon value of the, when I am doing the second integral, I will substitute z equal to omega in the numerator. So 1 upon omega minus 1 into omega minus omega square plus 1 upon, I will substitute z equal to omega square in the numerator of the third integrand. So 1 upon omega square minus omega into omega square minus 1. And this is 2 pi I times, making common denominator, omega minus omega square minus 1 minus omega square plus 1 minus omega upon z minus 1 times, sorry, a little typo here, sorry, upon 1 minus omega into 1 minus omega square. So the denominator should be not z minus 1 z minus omega square. It should be 1 minus omega square and omega minus omega square. Sorry, I wrote the denominator wrongly. I'll make that correction. So this is equal to 0. Anyway, this sum you can easily compute on your own. You know, just use the fact that omega cube is equal to 1 and you find that this is equal to 0. So here is an example where the function is not holomorphic inside the contour mod z equal to 6, but the integral is still 0. Any doubts?
Over a closed contour, integrals will only arise because of the poles.
Non-zero integrals will arise only because of the poles, right? That's what you meant?
Yes, that's what I meant.
But no, I mean, it's only the whole, my point of this example is it's only a one-way implication. If the integral is non-zero, it's because there are poles, that is Cauchy's theorem. But just because there are poles doesn't mean the integral is non-zero. See, z cube minus 1 also has 3 poles in the contour. But the integral has turned out to be 0. So it's a one-way implication. Any doubts?
Yes, I see. Please go ahead.
Yeah. In the second last line of this of the solution, second exercise, there is a typo. The denominator should be changed. I will make that correction. I've just from the third last step to the second last step, I've just made common denominator. But somewhere in the copy pasting, I made a mistake. It's not z minus 1 times z minus w times z minus w square. It is 1 minus w times 1 minus w square times w minus w square. Just making common denominator from third step to the from the third last step to the second last step, and then the numerator cancels and you will get 0. Okay. So let's see one or two more examples. Let's do integration mod z equal to 3 cos pi z dz upon z square minus 1. So you can use partial fractions. So this is half times integration along mod z equal to 3 cos pi z upon z minus 1 minus cos pi z upon z plus 1 dz along z equal to 3. This is equal to 0, right? Why? Because by Cauchy's integral formula, this is equal to half times cos pi minus cos minus pi. But cos pi is equal to cos minus pi, so this is equal to 0. I have to in the first integrand I will have to substitute pi z equal to 1. Second one I will substitute z equal to minus 1. So I will get half times cos pi minus cos of minus pi. Cos pi is the same as cos minus pi, both are minus 1. So this is equal to 0. So here again the integrand has poles, but the integral is still 0. Yeah, in case you want to just look at Cauchy's integral formula once again, it was 1 upon 2 pi I integration of fz dz upon z minus z naught is equal to f of z naught. Yeah, so something holomorphic upon z minus z naught integrated factor of 1 upon 2 pi I outside is the value of the function at that point z naught. Applying that to this case, now my in the first so here in the first integrand fz is cos pi z, second integrand also it is cos pi z, denominator is z minus 1 and z plus 1, so just it's very trivial. Another way to see it is to use the previous trick, break up this integral along mod z equal to 3 along sum of two integrals, one along the circle around z around 1 and another circle around minus 1. So break this integral into cos pi z upon z square minus 1 along mod z minus 1 equal to epsilon plus the same integral along mod z plus 1 equal to epsilon. We have seen that integral along a contour can be broken up into sum of integrals along each of the poles. So do that. And now write in the first integrand, write it as cos pi z upon z plus 1 upon z minus 1. Second case cos pi z by z minus 1 upon z plus 1. And numerators of both the integrands are holomorphic. The first integrand blows up at z equal to minus 1. So it is so there is no problem in a small circle of radius epsilon around plus 1. Second integral, the numerator blows up at z equal to 1. So there is no problem when I choose a circle of small radius around minus 1. So both integrands are of the form holomorphic upon z minus z naught. Yeah, any doubts?
Yes, I think that go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so let us see another last example. So this example is of a slightly different kind. So here is an example where the Cauchy integral formula can be used to compute a seemingly hard real integral. So let's use complex integration to do a real integral. We will be seeing many examples of this in the second half of the course. Compute real integrals using this contour integration. Let k be a real constant and show that integration 0 to 2 pi e raised to k cos theta sine of k sine theta d theta is equal to 0. So I don't, if we were to just use techniques from basic calculus, say MA 105, I don't know how one would compute this, how one would prove this. And it's an integration 0 to 2 pi e raised to k cos theta cos of k sine theta d theta is equal to 2 pi. So let's apply Cauchy integral formula to this function e raised to kz by z dz. Let's do integration e raised to kz by z mod z equal to 1. By applying Cauchy integral formula, this gives 2 pi I times the value of the function at 0, because in this case z naught is 0. So 2 pi I times e raised to k times 0. So this is 2 pi I. So hence 2 pi I is equal to this integration e raised to k times, make a change of variables, substitute, replace z by e raised to I theta since we are integrating along the circle. So then this becomes e raised to k times cos theta plus I sin theta upon e raised to I theta, I e raised to I theta d theta, which is I times integration 0 to 2 pi e raised to k cos theta times cos of k sin theta plus I times sin of k sin theta d theta. And now equating the real and imaginary part gives the answer. The real and imaginary parts of this are exactly what you want. So you know the value of the integral. The integrand breaks up into exactly the real and imaginary parts that you want. So simply comparing the real and imaginary part gives you the answer.
Sir, why not z equal to 1?
Well, why? Well, I want to get something useful, right? Suppose I take, for example, suppose I take mod of z minus, suppose I, instead of mod z equal to 1, suppose I take mod of z minus 1 equal to 1. Suppose. Then I will get 0. I want, it's not important to take mod z equal to 1, but I just need to choose some contour which contains the pole of this function.
Okay, sir.
So I could take, yeah, mod z equal to 5 will give you the same answer. Of course, in all this I should mention, when you are doing this integration, see, you are integrating along some circle of radius r. You know, it's not just the circle that matters. It's also the it's also, you know, you have to, it's only if you integrate once along the circle that you will get whatever you get. You know, if you take the curve that goes around 5 times around the circle, you will get 5 times the answer. So it's not just the contour that matters. It's also the what matters is also the path of integration, not just the contour. I mean, not just the not just the image. So these are examples. So in this late course, we will see many examples of complex integration later. But let us see a little more of the theory, and then we will come to more examples. Okay, so there we have discussed 4 examples of Cauchy integral formula. Now let us. So we saw. So just to recall where we stand. We saw 2 important theorems, namely Cauchy's theorem and Cauchy integral formula. The first said that the integral along a closed curve for a function is of a function is 0 if the function is holomorphic on and within the curve. The second said that f of z naught is equal to 1 upon 2 pi I integration of z dz by z minus z naught along gamma if f is holomorphic on and within the simple closed curve gamma. We then derived Cauchy's theorem by appealing to Green's theorem after assuming Gursaw's theorem, the continuity of the partial derivatives, and we derived Cauchy's integral formula from Cauchy's theorem by making use of the computation integration dz by z minus z naught along gamma is equal to 2 pi I. So in fact, you can turn the situation on its head. Is you can Cauchy's theorem is actually equivalent to the Cauchy integral formula. So you could begin with the Cauchy integral formula and derive Cauchy's theorem. So try and prove this little fact. So they are really, you could start with any one and prove the other with ease. We won't discuss this, that you can go the other way around, but just wanted to point out that you can go from the integral formula to Cauchy's theorem. Okay. So the mathematician for the day is Poincare. This is the period he lived, 1854 to 1912. He was a great French mathematician and mathematical physicist of the 19th and 20th century. He lived 12 years into the 20th century, but that's when he did his most important work. 1900 to 1912 was perhaps his most creative period. His mathematical contributions are as fundamental as those of Gauss and Riemann. He developed the branch of mathematics called algebraic topology, and the notion of simply connectedness being a small aspect of this subject, which we are using repeatedly. This is due to Poincare. He also did fundamental work in differential equations, the theory of several complex variables, number theory, and possibly more. In physics, he made fundamental contributions in optics, electricity, elasticity, thermodynamics, potential theory, and cosmology. He also has his name attached to an important aspect of special relativity. He settled a special case of the three-body problem in mechanics. So there is this famous, very difficult three-body problem in mechanics, right? You have say 3 point masses, and you know the initial velocities of all those point masses, and they're acting on each other by gravity, and to determine their trajectory is a very difficult problem. And I think he made very important contributions. I don't know the exact status of the problem. And one of the famous Millennium Prize problems, the Poincare conjecture, is named after him. So I mentioned that in one of the earlier lectures that the Clay Mathematics Foundation has announced 7 problems, very important problems, and the solution to each of them, they're called the Millennium Prize problems, and solution to each of them will fetch person $1 million. And one of those famous Millennium Prize problems is called the Poincare conjecture and is named after him. And it was solved in 2006 by Perelman, roughly 100 years after its formulation. Perelman was awarded the Fields Medal and offered the $1 million for solving this problem. He declined both the prize and the $1 million on ideological grounds. So that's Poincare. Some of you might have seen the popular article I sent few days back, a 2-part article by Raghunathan. The second article discusses this Poincare conjecture in some detail, and it's a nice sort of chatty discussion about topology. So I urge you people to look at the 2 articles. The first one is perhaps more of sort of mathematical gossip, you may say. The second one has some actual mathematics. So that's Poincare for you. It's extremely creative mathematician. Okay. So any doubts so far? So now we are going to prove the third important theorem after this. So any doubts so far? We are going to now prove that holomorphic implies analytic. Okay. So let us prove holomorphic implies analytic now. Let f be a holomorphic function in a neighborhood of a point z0 in C. And let capital R be positive, capital R positive, be such that f is holomorphic in a circle of radius capital R around z0. And let gamma be a circle of radius small r with small r less than capital R centered at z0. Cauchy integral formula gives us fz is equal to 1 upon 2 pi I integration fw dw upon w minus z. Yeah. See, so if you freeze the value of z and allow w to change, treating w as a variable and freezing z, you get fz equal to 1 upon 2 pi I fw dw integration fw dw by w minus z for any z, so that mod of z minus z0 is less than r. Note that we have chosen small r to be less than capital R, so f is holomorphic on and within gamma. The aim is to prove that f is analytic at z0. Once again, what does this mean? Yeah, this is okay so far. Yeah, there is a disk of radius capital R on which the function is holomorphic. Now I have taken a disk of smaller radius, small r, centered at z0, which is contained in that bigger disk, and applying Cauchy integral formula to points which are in the interior of the smaller disk. So the aim is to prove that f is analytic at z0. What does this mean? Recall that this means you have to show that f can be expanded as a power series around z0 in a neighborhood of z0. So the idea is to get the power series in z minus z0 from the right hand side of Cauchy integral formula. So the term in the Cauchy integral formula which looks amenable to some manipulation is 1 upon w minus z. So we know that we can expand 1 upon w minus z as geometric series. Also keep in mind that the only series that we know really well is the geometric series. So let's look at it closely. So look at 1 upon w minus z. I can write this as 1 upon w minus z0 into w minus z0 upon w minus z. This is 1 upon w minus z0 times 1 upon 1 minus z minus z0 upon w minus w0. Just rearranging. This is equal to 1 upon w minus z0 times 1 plus z minus z0 by w minus z0 plus z minus z0 upon w minus z0 square and so on, geometric series. Since mod of Z minus Z naught upon W minus Z naught is less than 1. So geometric series converges if the successive terms have ratio whose modulus is less than 1. So we are in that range. Mod of Z minus Z naught upon W minus Z naught is indeed less than 1, because Z is in the interior of the circle, W is the point on the circle. So Z minus Z naught has strictly smaller magnitude than W minus the Z naught for all points W inside gamma. So the numerator has modulus less than small r, denominator has modulus equal to small r. So the ratio is less than 1. So let us plug this in the Cauchy integral formula. So fz is equal to 1 upon 2 pi I integration f w dw by w minus z. So which is 1 upon 2 pi I integration f w upon w minus z naught times. So this 1 upon w minus z I am rearranging as 1 upon w minus z naught outside, and then this summation z minus z naught upon w minus z naught raised to I. Yeah, just substituting 1 upon w minus z from before, dw, which is equal to 1 upon 2 pi I, break it up into sum of integrals f w dw upon w minus z naught plus 1 upon 2 pi I integration f w by z minus w minus z naught square times z minus z naught plus dot dot dot. And we see that this is of the form summation an z minus z naught to the power n for mod of z minus z naught less than r, where an are these integrals 1 upon 2 pi I integration mod of w minus z naught equal to r f w dw upon w minus z naught raised to n plus 1. Yeah, these integrals give you some numbers. Those are my ans. So I have written it as summation an z minus z naught to the power n, convergent power series. Now let me make a remark. So remark, in general, integral of a sum, means sum meaning infinite sum really, need not be a sum of integrals in general. For finite sum it's okay, but in the previous slide it can be justified. The key word is uniform convergence. So we will skip the details. So I'm saying there is a little bit of justification required to break up this to break up the integral of an infinite sum into sum of integrals. That requires a little bit of justification, but that can be done. And the key word there is uniform convergence. But if I have to explain uniform convergence, that's really a subject of a separate lecture. We cannot go into that here. But this can be done. One can justify all this. So except for this fact, this is, I hope the proof is clear. Yeah, thus we have proved, the conclusion is that thus we have proved that if f is holomorphic in a disk of radius r around capital R around z naught, then you can write fz as summation an z minus z naught to the power n, where an is this integral 1 upon 2 pi integration f w dw upon w minus z naught to the power n plus 1 dw. For any r less than equal, for any small r less than capital R. This is the upshot. Since the power series converges to f for mod z minus z naught less than r, the radius of convergence is at least little r. And we know how to compute this an. An is exactly, and this an can be computed using the function. An is simply take the nth derivative at z naught. When you take the nth derivative at z naught, all the terms except for the nth term cancel. So nth derivative at z naught upon n factorial is your an. Yeah, when you differentiate fz n times, all the lower terms go away, all the higher terms will also go away when you substitute z equal to z naught. So you are only left with some multiple of an. So an is nth derivative at z naught upon n factorial. Whenever fz is equal to summation an z minus z naught to the n. So we know how. So in some sense, we know an in two different ways. We know an as a certain integral. We also know an as a certain derivative. There are really two ways. Sometimes, depending on whatever is convenient, you can use that to compute an. In particular, an does not depend on r. Any small r less than capital R gives the same an. The radius of convergence is thus at least capital R. Okay, so that completes the discussion for the day.